G'day and welcome to Designing a B2B Video Strategy for LinkedIn. Now, in this workshop, over the course of the next 30 minutes or so, what I'm going to do is walk you through what I believe to be best practice for designing a strategy and implementing the tactics of using video natively on LinkedIn right now in 2020. Now, I want you to recognize that many of the ideas and concepts I'm going to share in this workshop, they're actually relevant to video across any social media platform as well. However, at the end of the workshop, when we get into more of the specific tactics to do with LinkedIn, most of those are really specific to LinkedIn. So I know you're going to get a lot of value from this workshop and I can't wait to dive in. And of course, if you've got any questions at all, if I can help you any further with any of this, just reach out to me directly. Okay, let's get stuck in. Okay, so first of all, let's look at some stats around LinkedIn and video right now in 2020. The first one is LinkedIn currently has over 675 million monthly users, and that's growing all the time. And granted, it's not quite as big as some of the other social platforms like Facebook, Instagram, for example, and YouTube. However, LinkedIn definitely has the eyeballs and it's where the attention is, particularly when it comes to B2B. So that's what we'll focus on today. 94% of B2B marketers use LinkedIn for content marketing. And if right now you're not familiar with the term content marketing, effectively what it means is publishing value-based content in a form that has some kind of marketing value. And that could be blog posts, it could be video, it could be quote cards on Instagram, it could be articles on LinkedIn, for example. There's a whole number of different types of content marketing that you're probably very familiar with and consume. So 94% of B2B marketers are currently using LinkedIn for some form of content marketing. So my question is, are you? And engagement on LinkedIn has increased over 50% year on year. So that means that more and more people are actually engaging in LinkedIn, and that's got a lot to do with the changes that they've made over the last few years to the LinkedIn algorithm as it starts to behave a bit more like Facebook, a bit more newsfeed driven. But the exciting point there is that people are engaging on LinkedIn increasingly as well. So it's still kind of early days. I kind of look at LinkedIn as being still under-indexed, and people really need to be paying more attention to what they can do to get in front of the right people on LinkedIn. And I guess that's why you're here watching this workshop now. And 4 out of 5 people on LinkedIn are the people who drive business decisions. So they're the managers, they're the CEOs, they're the business owners, they're the people who make purchasing decisions. 4 out of 5 people, so that's important to recognize. And LinkedIn native video is 5 times more likely than other content to start a conversation. And that's referring to other content posted on LinkedIn. So video is 5 times more likely to actually start a conversation on LinkedIn. So what does this tell me? Well, it tells me that LinkedIn video really needs to be part of your marketing strategy this year. And so you're in the right place watching this workshop. But there's something else I want to kind of communicate to you here, and this is this idea of as more and more video content is being created and as the ability to create video content becomes easier, it becomes more democratized. In other words, there's more and more people who are able to create video content, sometimes just at the click of a button on your smartphone or smart device. So as there's more and more video content being shared across all of these platforms, LinkedIn included, the problem comes up whereby there's so much content that we're kind of like bombarded by this avalanche of typically average content online. And the problem as marketers, or the problem as B2B consumers, is that we are constantly getting overwhelmed by the amount of information that's being shared with us. So when we're launching into using video on LinkedIn, the important thing that I want to communicate is that we don't want to be just contributing to that avalanche of average content. And that's what I'm going to help you understand today in the first part of this workshop as we dive into a little bit of the strategy behind using video on LinkedIn. But first, a bit about me. If we haven't met before, I'm Ben Amos. I own and am the director of Innovate Media, an online video strategy and production agency based on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. I'm also a consultant and a speaker operating under the brand Engage Video Marketing. And through that brand as well, I host the podcast Engage Video Marketing Podcast. So if you're a podcast listener, I'd love for you to jump on in and listen to the podcast as well. I've been in the film and media industry in various forms for over 24 years, and prior to starting my business 11 years ago, I was actually a high school film and TV teacher. So that's a little fun fact for you. Started the business 11 years ago, and for the last 6 years, we've really been focused on helping businesses just grow and reach their audiences through effective online video marketing strategies. And this is kind of what I'm here to share with you today. All right, so let's begin, shall we? I just want to run you through what we're going to cover in the next 30 minutes or so with this workshop. First of all, I'm going to talk to you about a concept that I call the video marketing sweet spot. And then we're going to talk about why having a video strategy for your LinkedIn video marketing is so important. And I'm going to break down exactly what that strategy might look like for you. I'm going to talk to you about how you can design a full funnel approach to a video strategy, and then we're going to break down some specific examples of video types that you can use at different stages of the journey that people go on to buy from you. And we're going to talk then about how LinkedIn fits into that, followed by, I'm going to whip through at the end my top 10 tips for native video on LinkedIn. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about this idea of the video marketing sweet spot. And it's based around the concept of when most people think about using video for business, they're focused on one thing, and that is the content production. And what I mean by content production is they're thinking about how do we make the video, or what video do we make, or do we do it ourselves, or do we hire someone to make it? You know, basically they're focused on just the act of getting a piece of video content and publishing it out there. But the reality is that's only one aspect to being effective with video marketing. You see, the other thing that you need to consider is the best produced content could be the wrong piece of content in the first place. So this is why you also need a strategy designed. So what I mean by the strategy is like the plan, the roadmap. Putting some strategic thinking into what video to create and why, and how it's going to move the right people to take the right sort of action, which is ultimately what you're creating a video for anyway, right? It's to get someone to do, think, or feel differently and to take some sort of action, ideally, whether that be find out more or buy from you or whatever, right? So you need the content, but you also need the right strategy designed. But having great content and having a good plan sometimes just isn't enough either, because you also need to implement that content as well. What I mean by the strategy management here is the idea of actually getting the content published and optimized and used in the right way for any given platform. So actually managing that content that you produce. You see, again, the reality is that you can have a great plan, you can produce great content, but if it's not being managed correctly, or you're just sticking it up somewhere and hoping that it works for you, and it's just going to fail. So it's the kind of intersection of these three things that I call the video marketing sweet spot. And if you take one thing away from this workshop, it's that you need to consider all three of these aspects in order for your video strategy to be successful. So it's kind of like three legs of a three-legged stool. If any one of these is not strong or is wobbly or not there, then chances are that your video marketing strategy will fall over. I want to share with you this quote that I love and is at the foundation of everything that we do in my business, which is, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. And this was written in a book called The Art of War by a guy called Sun Tzu, who was writing about ancient warfare in ancient China, but it's equally true and valuable today when you think about your digital marketing strategy, because the strategy, the plan, without the tactics, which is the actual doing or making and publishing the video, is a slow route to victory. In fact, you'll probably never get there. But the tactics, just making video and sticking it up online somewhere without a strategy or without having a good plan, is just noise before defeat. And as we said before, there's so much noise out there, we don't want to be contributing to the avalanche of average. So the question is, where should your video strategy start? I want you to take a moment now and think to yourself, what should you be thinking about to start a strategic plan for your video marketing? Take a moment, write it down, or just have an idea in your head of what should you be thinking about and where should you start. Okay, have you got the idea? Awesome, cool. Hopefully you said we're going to start with the audience. We really need to understand who we're selling to. We need to understand who we're creating a piece of content for, or who we're trying to market to and communicate to in the first place. There's a quote on the screen by a guy called Seth Godin, who wrote a book called This Is Marketing, I think a couple of years ago. It's definitely worth picking up the book. In the book, he says that persistent, consistent, and frequent stories delivered to an aligned audience will earn attention, trust, and action. So it's the aligned audience. So you have to have persistent, consistent, and frequent stories delivered to an aligned audience. You need to know who you're talking to, or you can't communicate to them. It's just straight down the line, good marketing. And for so many people, get it wrong. So when we know who that audience is, who we're communicating to, then I want to share with you how you can start to think about how we can actually communicate to them using video in a way that engages the audience in the right way to help them move towards a decision. And a caveat here, I'm not a neuroscientist, okay? But what I'm going to share with you here is just a little bit of brain science, a little bit of an understanding about how the human brain works. And it's based around this idea called the triune brain theory, which is a theory that says basically we've got kind of 3 levels of our brain. And those 3 levels help us make decisions, and whether we are conscious of the fact that we're making those decisions or not. And it starts with kind of the inside part of your brain, what they call the reptilian brain, which is responsible for the fight or flight, that kind of reflex action that we have as humans. And that's really subconscious part of the brain. So if we walk into a room and there's danger and we sense danger, then chances are we're going to turn away and run away, okay? So if that reptilian brain, that subconscious fight or flight reflex is not satisfied, is not comfortable, if it's firing, then we can't even get past that initial stage as we're trying to communicate or transfer a message to someone through video. And once that reptilian brain is happy, is comfortable and safe, then we engage with the limbic system. So the limbic system is where this emotional response comes from. So if you think of the reptilian brain as kind of like that gut feel, then the limbic system is responsible for that heart feel, right? And again, so much of this emotional response happens subconsciously. So in our marketing, we need to think about how are we engaging people with emotions before we're communicating to them rationally. Because the third part of the brain is the neocortex, and the neocortex is the biggest part of the brain, which is responsible for rational thought and processing. And the reality is that as humans, our brain kind of fires from the inside out. If our reptilian brain isn't happy or is taking over, then the limbic system and the neocortex aren't going to pretty much do anything. And again, if the limbic system is not getting a positive response or feeling the right sorts of things, then the neocortex or the rational brain is potentially not going to process the rational thought in the way that you want them to. So as marketers, it's important to understand that humans make decisions based on emotion, and then they justify that decisions with rational thought and logic. And the emotional decision happens like that. To explain this idea further, I want to refer to this idea called the Golden Circle Principle by a guy called Simon Sinek. Now, I recommend, if you haven't seen the TED Talk by Simon Sinek, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, I recommend you look that up and watch it, because in this presentation, Simon Sinek shares the idea of the importance in communication and marketing of starting with the why. In other words, starting from the inside of this circle and then communicating outwards. However, most brands, most businesses are actually communicating and marketing from the outside in. They're talking about what they do and how they do it, but very few are talking about why they do what they do. And if you flip that around and you communicate from the inside out, basically what you're doing is communicating starting with your why. In other words, starting with the emotional realization that you want people to have, and then moving them towards the rational decision to maybe buy from you or to take the action that you want. And then if we go one step further with this, maybe you're familiar with this idea of a marketing funnel. And in a marketing funnel, it's the concept that when people are making purchasing decisions, they're moving through 3 different stages effectively, from an awareness of a need through to the consideration of who they'll buy from, or will they buy or won't they buy, and then through to making a decision to purchase. That's a standard marketing funnel. And you'll recognize that the awareness is that emotional realization that people have, and then they move towards the rational decision to purchase. Again, we're moving from emotional to rational. And for the marketers out there, you get this idea. But let me make this really clear, because I kind of liken it to the idea of dating. So on the first date, when you're in the awareness stage of this relationship, what are you going to do? You're going to try and connect on an emotional level with your prospect, with your first date, right? And so you're going to dress nicely, you're going to make eye contact, you're going to sit up and pay attention, you're going to tell great stories, you're aiming to appeal to the emotional connection that you want that person to make so that they go further on this journey with you. Because if you do a good job at that first date, making that right emotional connection, then someone's going to go further into that consideration phase. And in the dating analogy, you can kind of imagine that this is holding hands and going on further dates and getting to know each other, maybe meeting the family. You're starting to see if there's some alignment here. You're building on this idea of that you trust each other, that you like each other, and that you're going to be a good fit for each other. And then you move through to the purchase stage of the journey. And in this dating analogy, the conversion or the purchase, well, it probably happens before babies are born, but you can imagine what that is. And so again here, we can see that people are moving in this dating analogy from making emotional connection through to the rational decision to convert. But what happens in the dating analogy if you try and jump straight in for the purchase on the first date? Exactly. You get slapped in the face. Now, how often have you come across marketing messages or advertising that feels like you're being slapped in the face by the brand or the business? In fact, think about the marketing that you're doing today and think, are you trying to slap your customers in the face and go for that conversion on the first date? So with this concept in mind, I want to share with you this idea that I call the full funnel video strategy framework. And this is at the foundation of what good video marketing should be. And you can see across the top here that we've got that journey from emotional through to rational. So we're moving from left to right, aligned with how humans make decisions, as we've just talked about. And then we've got those key stages of the customer funnel that we've talked about as well, of awareness, which aligns with the emotional connection that people make, through a phase of consideration, and then making a decision to purchase, which is the rational decision to part with their cash, using a marketing funnel analogy. However, it's important to recognize that a full funnel video strategy doesn't end at the purchase, because we need to recognize that there's another stage to that customer journey, which we call advocacy, which is what happens after they become a customer. How can you engage them further to talk about you, to become raving fans, to become advocates, to buy from you again, and to basically bring new people into this journey with your brand or business? So there's kind of four main stages across this journey when we think about the full funnel video strategy framework. And aligned with these four stages are the four goals for video in a marketing funnel. And I want to break them down for you now over the next little bit. The first goal is in the awareness stage here, which is called brand positioning. And the goal here is to get people to sit up and pay attention, to buy in to your brand before you ask them to buy. So this is where you want to make that right emotional connection with your prospect, with your target audience, through the videos that you share. And the best way to do this is by using strategies and tactics around the idea of storytelling, because stories are intrinsically emotional. Now, in a brand concept, we can talk about using brand stories. So how can you communicate your why, what's your underlying purpose for your business, and how are you there to serve your customers? Remembering that every good story needs a hero, and you are not the hero of your story. Yeah, your customer is the hero of your story. So when you're telling brand stories, you need to position yourself as the guide or the mentor that helps that customer achieve a successful outcome in life. So brand stories is a great example of ways that you can use video at the brand positioning goal, or for the purpose of achieving the brand positioning goal. And then client stories. So actually make your clients the heroes of their own stories. So you use your clients, and maybe sometimes you would call these case study videos, sometimes called testimonial videos, although I see testimonial videos used more in that rational end of the journey down here. But client stories are all around using storytelling techniques to get people to connect emotionally and feel related to that customer and the journey they went on to success with your brand or business, and ideally that relation that they feel, that emotion that they feel as they're watching that client story should move them towards them taking the action with your brand or business. And sometimes we can talk about using things like vlogging as well as a brand positioning idea, or even a blanket term that I call concept films, which is really a number of other ways of creating video, usually with a high production value and concept, which is all about getting people to just really care about the brand, right? So these types of videos are all designed to get that emotional connection with your brand or your business, and get your ideal customer to buy in to the idea of buying from you. And then as we move to the second goal here, I talk about the goal of social engagement. Now, by social engagement, I'm referring to social as in social media being a great tool to use here, but also human to human, because it doesn't matter whether we're B2B or B2C or whatever it is. Business is all about P2P, right? People to people. So what we want to do is to go on those second and third dates here with our customer so that they get to know, like, and trust us. And the way we do this in the social engagement goal with video is basically create helpful content. So create and publish content that actually educates, informs, or inspires your ideal audience so that they feel more likely to trust you and they know that you're the expert in what it is that you do, and they get some small wins along the way so that when they are ready to buy, who are they more likely to buy from? So from a video perspective, we can do things like how-to videos or frequently asked questions videos. We can provide some sort of education in various forms. Maybe we can take people behind the scenes, kind of let them see what the process is like or how we do what we do so that they feel more connected to the business that they're potentially going to buy from. Maybe it's thought leadership. So thought leadership is the idea of sharing content that puts an opinion or expresses how you think about something into the marketplace so that those people who align with your belief structure or your ideas or are excited about the possibility of working with someone who thinks that way, then they're more likely to come and buy from you. So not just being vanilla and bland, and actually getting some of your thoughts out into the world through your content as well. Maybe it's entertainment, okay? So people, even in the buying journey, they want to be entertained. So can your brand provide that entertainment to them through your videos as well? And this idea of bingeable content, which is content that people want to come back for again and again. So when you're thinking about your video strategy, how can you create content that people subscribe to, or they can't wait to see the next of those videos or whatever it may be, or when they see it come up in their feed, they're like, oh yeah, here's another one of these type of videos. Okay, that's the kind of thing, is bingeable content. Or the best case scenario is when someone sees one of your videos and then they want to hunt down and watch all of the videos in the series, for example. So that's gold there for social engagement, because the idea here is it's the second and third dates where we get people to not only, you know, kind of get us, but now they know us and they like us and they trust us. And because then it's so much easier to move down to the purchase end of the journey, which the goal here is conversions. Okay, and by conversions, I'm obviously meaning making the sale, or sometimes a conversion might be attending an event or subscribing to an email list. Whatever your conversion is, the goal for these pieces of content is to make that conversion happen in the quickest and easiest way possible. So what type of content we want to create here is what we call sales-focused content. And that could take a number of different forms, to be honest. But some examples of sales-focused content is maybe demoing a product, you know, basically doing what the salesperson would do in a bricks and mortar store. They would show you how it works. They'd open and close the doors, they'd press the buttons, and you'll be able to see for yourself how this thing actually operates so that it overcomes any barriers to actually buying that thing. Maybe it's a walkthrough. Maybe if it's software, maybe you can show how it actually works. Take them behind the scenes and show them what they will get when they buy. Maybe it's a testimonial. Now, testimonials here, as opposed to client stories, which was at the other end of the journey there, when I'm talking about testimonials, it's all about providing social proof. So a testimonial here is a short grab in a video that basically says, you know, I bought this thing and I loved it, or something like that. So really, it's quite rational, but the goal with testimonials here is just to show that other people are buying and they're happy, and that helps with conversions immensely. Videos on landing pages, okay? So having specific videos that address specific segments of your audience and having them on a landing page. You recognize here that these type of videos, they're not necessarily going to be on social media, okay? They're going to be on the sales page, right next to the buy now button or add to cart or whatever it may be. And maybe one-to-one sales videos, so using direct personalized videos via email or via messaging to actually do the job of a face-to-face salesperson. Okay, you don't need to be face-to-face to people to sell, and video is a great way to bring that human connection back to the sales process. You see, the truth is that 68% of customers, they just don't want to talk to a salesperson anymore. They want to do their research before they buy, and they want to basically come to the decision of buying themselves before they actually talk to a salesperson. Is that how you behave as well? I want you to think about your own behavior here. Okay, so the full funnel video strategy framework isn't finished until we deal with what happens after the sale is made as well. And this is where I talk about the concept of delight. So the goal here is to delight your customers so that you provide an amazing customer experience so that they talk about you and then they come back and buy from you again. So it's all about relationship-driven content here. And the kinds of videos you might do might be personalized video or one-to-one messaging. We talked a little bit about that in sales, but here it's more for customer retention or customer engagement. Maybe onboarding videos, using video in a way to actually make the early stages of becoming a customer or client or buying a product or using a service. How can you use video to help people just get quick wins with your product or service, or overcome the confusion that sometimes happens when someone starts using something for the first time or doing a process for the first time? Can you make it seamless for them, make it a good experience? And video is a great way to do that, and to do that at scale. Maybe you can do video that that thanks people. How often do you thank your customers? And doing so through video can be a really unique way to stand out and build that relationship. Maybe you've got milestones that you can celebrate through video, or just build community. There are truly countless ways of using video for the purpose of delighting your customers and improving the client experience. So now that we've gone through the full funnel video strategy framework, and you can understand that there are different types of video that you want to use in different ways along that journey to kind of move people through that funnel so that you can market to people in the right way, in the way that they want to be marketed to at any stage that they're at in the funnel. So the question I want you to ask yourself now is, where does LinkedIn video fit within this funnel? What types of videos are the ones that you should be potentially sharing and using on LinkedIn? Have a think about it now, and just mentally just think about which one of these, or maybe it's a couple of these, is where LinkedIn video fits. Have you got it? Okay. Yep, hopefully you said it's the top of the funnel or the middle of the funnel. In other words, for the goal of brand positioning or social engagement. So LinkedIn is primarily a social platform. It's a B2B social platform. Yes, it's professional, but it's primarily about human connection, right? In fact, any of the social media platforms are primarily about human connection. So we need to be considering, when we're thinking about the types of videos to use on LinkedIn, that we're either telling great stories, we're creating brand positioning content and using it in a specific way, or we're creating social engagement content, providing helpful content that educates, informs, or inspires people. Okay, so I promised you my top 10 tips for LinkedIn native video. Now, I just want to mention here before we get into it that what I'm not going to be talking about in this section is LinkedIn live video. So maybe some of you currently have access to LinkedIn live video. Maybe you don't yet have access to live video on LinkedIn, but as of now in March 2020, it's still in closed beta. Now, I've recently got access to LinkedIn Live, and I imagine that over the course of this year, they're going to be rolling out LinkedIn Live to a lot more people. So look out for LinkedIn Live, but that training is going to have to come at a different time. We're not going to talk about LinkedIn Live right now because it's a platform that needs to be thought of a little bit differently. Okay, so 10 tips for LinkedIn native video. Tip number 1, and it's no surprise, right? Because we just talked about it. When it comes to a strategic approach to video, you really need to know who it is that you're trying to market to. You need to know your audience. You can't just market on LinkedIn or create content for LinkedIn or engage on LinkedIn, assuming that everybody is all the same. You really need to know who it is that you're trying to reach and know them really better than they know themselves. It's just good marketing strategy. And it's not just about knowing them demographically, so knowing that, you know, they're male, maybe they're 40 to 45 years old, that they're a marketing manager in a you know, billion-dollar company. So these are kind of demographic things that you maybe have a bit of a grasp on, but you really need to know them psychographically as well. So really understand for this specific 42-year-old marketing manager in a pharmaceutical company, for example, psychographically, we're going to understand that you know, he has career aspirations, that there's things that kind of keep him up at night. There are goals that he wants to achieve in his life. He has other things that he cares about, as well as his position in his career. He also has family that he cares about. He has life aspirations. So really know what's making him tick, what's going through his head, so that you can create and share content that's actually going to resonate with your ideal audience. So I really can't bang on about this enough, that you really need to know your audience and spend some time crafting those, what are sometimes called customer avatars. Now, tip number 2 is publish natively. And what I mean by this is create content and publish content on the LinkedIn video platform by actually uploading a video file directly in LinkedIn. Sometimes people think it's just so much easier just to grab a YouTube link of a piece of content and post it into LinkedIn. And you can absolutely do that, and sometimes you might want to do that if your goal is to drive people back to YouTube. But if you want maximum engagement on your content on LinkedIn, you're going to want to publish video natively within the LinkedIn platform. And there are some best practices when it comes to creating content natively for LinkedIn. You're going to get more screen real estate in the LinkedIn mobile feed, and the stats show that overwhelmingly people are using LinkedIn in the mobile feed as well as the desktop, but mostly on their mobile devices. So when you are publishing content for LinkedIn, you want to be considering creating content that's in a square aspect ratio, not widescreen, and using burnt-in captions or the transcript or what's being said in the video actually as text overlaid onto the video. And there are some creative and really effective ways that you can actually take a widescreen video or an extract of a widescreen video and put it into a square frame with maybe a logo and an eye-catching headline at the top, and allowing space then for those burnt-in captions underneath the video. So you often see this by people like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, and you can see an example of how this is done on the screen here. Just a quick tip, a super easy way to do this, if you've got an existing widescreen video that you want to put into a square frame like this for LinkedIn, is to take an existing piece of your video content, maybe just edit the little section out that you want to use Canva to actually design the frame. Canva is a free online graphics-based editing program and super easy to use for non-designers. So use Canva to design your frame, but leave some space at the bottom for adding in the captions there, because then you can export that video as a square video with all your pretty frame around it, and you can bring it into a program such as Quick, Q-U-I-C-C, and by going into Quick, you can actually automatically transcribe your video, quickly fix the transcription, and then export a video with burnt-in captions right then and there. So it takes literally 10 minutes in some cases to create a socially native video in a square frame with burnt-in captions. Super simple for anyone who even isn't a video editor. Okay, tip number 3 is you need to hook the viewer in the first 6 seconds. So what I mean by the hook is you want to actually grab their attention, remembering that they're often scrolling through a news feed or they're looking at other things. They're not necessarily coming to LinkedIn to find your video. So you need to grab them in the first 6 seconds. Also remember that LinkedIn is a sound-off video platform. So of course that's why you need the burnt-in captions that we talked about before. Most people are playing video on LinkedIn without the sound. So in this hook section, you need to consider how you can use both a visual hook and some kind of an emotional hook as well is really powerful. So the headline of the video or text on the video is a great way to kind of hook people and make them stop and pay attention. Or another good way to hook people is simply by having a human face, someone who's excited and smiling. And so the first frame of your video right from the beginning is that human face, because people connect with people. So what I don't want you to do is to start your videos with some kind of animated logo or something like that, because people just don't care about your logo. You want to start right away with the value that people are going to get and that human who's going to present that value. So hook them in the first 6 seconds, or potentially you've lost them. Tip number 4 is customize the thumbnail. Now, the thumbnail, if you're not aware, is basically what shows underneath the little play icon on your video before it plays. Now, in many cases, LinkedIn native video is actually going to autoplay, but in some cases, the video is not going to autoplay. Or if it's already played through, then people will see the thumbnail again and they'll have to click play if they want to watch that video again, for example. So customizing the thumbnail is a really good way to add to that hook that we talked about just before in the previous tip. So the way to do this is to basically create a graphic. And once you've got that custom thumbnail graphic, which is related to the video, and maybe it's got some text on there so it tells you what this video is about, then you can actually put that in the first frame of your video. So in the process of editing a video or having the video edited, for one very minuscule tiny frame, if you put that thumbnail image there and then go into the rest of the video after that first frame, then that first frame will actually be the thumbnail. Now, that tip is actually relevant to sharing videos on your personal profile on LinkedIn, because on LinkedIn currently anyway, you can't upload a custom thumbnail in the process of uploading a video. In fact, all you can do when you're uploading a video natively in your personal profile is you can just add an SRT file or a caption file as well. Now, that said, if you're uploading a video through your company page, it does give you the ability to add a custom thumbnail, so you don't need to edit the video with that first frame changed, as I mentioned before. So to do that, you simply just click on the pen icon when you're uploading there, and you'll get the option to upload a custom thumbnail when you're uploading through a business page on LinkedIn only. Okay, tip number 5 is aim to add value. Don't sell. We mentioned before when we looked at the strategy behind good video marketing is at the top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel for the goal of brand awareness or social engagement, you really want to be adding value, not trying to pitch a sale. LinkedIn is not the place to pitch a sale, and especially not in the LinkedIn inbox. I'm sure that frustrates you as much as it frustrates me. The goal here is to build relationships with your prospects so that when they're ready to buy, they know who to come to. Okay, so aim to add value with your content. Don't be salesy on LinkedIn. And tip number 6 is be professional. LinkedIn is a professional platform, but when it comes to your video content, just don't be boring. Allow yourself to be entertaining or to have some personality, or perhaps think about how you can add some humor to what it is that you're doing when it aligns with your brand. Just because it's a professional networking platform doesn't mean that you need to be boring. Tip number 7 is be relevant, okay? Particularly when you think about LinkedIn's algorithm, they preference video in the algorithm already. So simply by doing video, you're going to be shown to more people. But make sure that video is relevant to the time, relevant to the current situation, relevant to what's going on in your ideal audience's life right now at any given time. If you can provide information through your video strategy and on LinkedIn that shows up for people at the time that they need it, then more people are going to engage with that, and all of that engagement is what boosts the content further up in the algorithm to be shown to more people on LinkedIn. Tip number 8 is use copy that drives engagement. And by the copy, I'm referring to the accompanying text that goes with the video when you upload it natively to LinkedIn. So when you're uploading the video, you're also going to be adding in some text into the LinkedIn status update or post. And use copy that doesn't just replicate the information that's shared within the video. The goal here is to type something in there that gets people to really want to watch the video. Okay, so maybe tease the value that they're going to get by watching the video, or perhaps provide a summary, but don't provide all of the answers that are going to be revealed in the video. The goal of the copy is to drive engagement with the video. Tip number 9 is use hashtags. Hashtags for any LinkedIn content is valuable in being shown to the right people at the right time, but also it has a good impact on the algorithm as well. So when it comes to using video, I suggest 3 to 5 hashtags, and again, making them relevant to your content, but also try a combination of more general hashtags that are relevant to your industry and also specific hashtags that are relevant to the content within that video itself. In fact, using hashtags is one of the best ways to go what they call trending on LinkedIn. And it's actually not that hard if you've got an engaging piece of content to trend for a certain hashtag on LinkedIn, and therefore it'll be shown to more people. And finally, tip number 10 is measure results. Don't just start posting LinkedIn native video without really understanding what metrics or what you're going to measure to determine whether or not there's actually success in what you're doing on LinkedIn. And you need to be measuring more than just the views on your video. You need to be diving into your video analytics and actually breaking down where those views are coming from. What industries are people in who are watching your video? Maybe there's a specific company that you're getting a lot of views on your video for, and there's so much opportunity that can come from really taking some time to analyze the data that's available to you within LinkedIn Analytics. Now, I must say here that currently LinkedIn's video analytics is not that great. In fact, there's a lot of improvement to be made, and hopefully they will be improving the number of metrics and the data that you can get on your videos in LinkedIn. Particularly, I'm interested to see, and I'd love to see if they could bring in retention graphs as well, like you see on YouTube and Facebook, which is understanding how long people are actually watching your videos for. That's something that's seriously lacking in LinkedIn video analytics right now. But hopefully that will come soon. So that's it. That's where I'm going to leave you after those 10 tips. At the end of today's workshop, I want you to really think about your video strategy across any channel. And when it comes to LinkedIn, think about how you're going to align the right videos and use them in the right way on LinkedIn with a plan and with a strategy in place. So I trust that workshop's been valuable for all you guys at LinkedIn Local, and I want to stay connected with you further and help you further, particularly in this time of so much uncertainty and changes in the way that we do business and so much interest in using video more effectively within businesses. So I want you to reach out to me anytime if I can help you, ben@innovatemedia.com.au, and I'd also love to help you further through my Engage Video Marketing Academy. If you're interested in learning more about how you can upskill with video right now, this week I've pulled together a whole bunch of valuable resources both from within my Engage Video Marketing Academy and brand new workshops that I've produced just for you right now. And the goal here for me is to share information that's going to be valuable to you and your business right now. So if you're interested in learning more about that, then head on over to engagevideomarketing.com/SOS bundle, and you can find out how you can get access to all of that training and a bunch more in the Engage Video Marketing Academy. Thanks again. I'm Ben from Innovate Media, and all the best with your video marketing.